Action.
Good day, I'm Reverend Louis Riccio, author of the book, The Sky is Falling. Well, I have good news. It's either good news or bad news, depending on what side of the fence you're on. But Jesus Christ is coming back, and He's coming back in this generation, in our day and time. Now, many people declare and they say that no man knows the end times and the end of the world because of a scripture that Jesus repeated a few times, that no man knows the day or the hour of the coming of the Son of Man. My friends, that is not an end times scripture. That is a scripture in a reference to the rapture and the resurrection of the church. But Jesus in Matthew 24, Mark 13, was asked when He prophesied of the destruction of the temple. They asked Him, when will this happen? And when will these things be? And what is the sign of your coming and the end of the world? Well, Jesus proceeded to do something very interesting. He answered them, which tells us He wants us to know when this time is. He described the time of calamity, a time where there'll be, he said that there will be wars and rumors of war, calamity, earthquakes, natural disasters, commotions, terrorisms around the world. He also declared that there will rise an evil dictator from this to rule over the world.
Russia has sent more armoured vehicles into the breakaway republic. It claims it's protecting its citizens and Russian peacekeepers. But as a state of war is formally declared, Georgia says this is now only about confrontation.
If we look at the newscast today, we can see the prophetic scriptures being fulfilled before our very eyes. Jesus went on and gave us an ending point here, where right when the world is about to destroy itself with war and untold calamities, in Matthew 24, verse 30, Jesus instructs us of His second coming. It says, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Then they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. This is the ending point. Then Jesus proceeds to give us the starting point of this event. Verse 32, He says, now learn a parable of the fig tree. When the branch is yet tender and put forth its leaves, know that summer is nigh. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away until these things be fulfilled. Jesus has given us a starting and an ending point. The starting point is this parable of the fig tree. According to Jesus, this fig tree starts a prophetic time clock which will conclude in one generation. We need to ask ourselves this important question. What is this fig tree? It's interesting to note that not one person around Jesus asked Him this important question, Lord, what is this fig tree? And that's very important because they already knew. They understood that the fig tree was a representation of the nation of Israel. Much like if you was to say, talk about the red, white, and blue. The people of America would know they were talking about the United States of America. So it was common in the Old Testament that the Jewish nation was referred to as a fig tree. For instance, in Hosea chapter 9, verse 10, Hosea writes that God saw the nation of Israel as a fig tree in the wilderness. The prophet Habakkuk, when the Babylonians were coming in to take the nation of Israel out of exile. And Habakkuk continually brought his complaints before God. But he finished his writings with this. He said, "Yet I will rest in my day of trouble. Although the fig tree will no longer blossom, yet I will trust in the Lord." He was saying, though the fig tree is uprooted and will no longer exist in that nation, he will still trust God. The prophet Jeremiah also, when the Jews were going into exile, was commanded by God to take two baskets of figs. One basket were evil, they were rotten figs, which represented the apostate nation that turned away from God. The other basket were good figs. They were the Jewish nation that stayed true to Yahweh. And this is what Jeremiah wrote, instructed by the God of Israel. In chapter 24, verse 5, he writes, "Like these good figs, so I will acknowledge them that are carried away captive of Judah. I will bring them back again to this land. I will build them up, and I will not pluck them down. I will plant them, and I will not pluck them out." The prophet Jeremiah instructed, God was saying, I will replant the fig tree in this same land, and they will remain there forever. This is the parable or the prophecy of the fig tree that Jesus spoke about. Now, when will this fig tree, or when has this fig tree been replanted?
The founding of the State of Israel in 1948 followed a United Nations recommendation for the amicable departure of British forces from Palestine, David as its symbol.
After 26 centuries of being scattered around the world and almost being destroyed in the Second World War, the Jewish people were reinstated and came back to their homeland, their promised land. I'm going to read from my book, The Sky is Falling, page 21. He said, on May 14, 1948, Israel was reinstated as an independent and sovereign nation. The Jews were scattered around the world for over 26 centuries. The fact that they were not assimilated by the world is amazing enough. But the very first act of the United Nations was to vote them back into the Promised Land. They were restored in one single day, just as the prophets promised. The fact that they came back to the same land with the same culture as the same race is amazing enough. But all of this in one day? Listen to what the prophet Isaiah wrote in chapter 66, verse 8. Who has heard of such a thing, or who has seen such things? Shall the earth be made to bring forth this nation in one day, or shall a nation be born at once? On May 14, 1948, the fig tree has been replanted. The end time prophetic time clock has begun. Remember, Jesus said, now learn a parable of a fig tree. When this generation shall not pass away until all these things be fulfilled. What are these things that this generation will see? The rapture of the church, the second coming of Jesus, the 7-year tribulation period, among others. This is no Chicken Little story. There are preachers who are declaring the sky is falling, and guess what? It is. The evidence that we are in the last days of history is stacked in the Bible's favor. Friend, 1948 starts the clock. Time is running out. You owe it to yourself. I have studied the prophetic scriptures. I have studied history, and I keep an eye on current events. I have also written 21 signs, the prophetic fulfillment that have happened in our generation. You owe it to yourself to purchase a copy of this book, The Sky is Falling, by Louis A. Riccio on Amazon.com.